So the planets are all in direct alignment now. Mercury is no longer in retrograde, which means if you want it to mean this, there's extra opportunities for you to move forward in your projects. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that what this means for people that pay attention to this? And I'm not trying to diminish this.
However you want to assign meaning, Sean.
Thank you. No, I mean literally though. Like, what's the most productive way to look at this? It's an opportunity to we have less resistance of the things that we might want to put into play, put into motion.
There's energy and momentum that you can utilize if you channel it in the right direction. Oh, well, let Deanna. Deanna knows. Let's let
Yes,
Deanna.
please. You're distant. You're distant, Deanna.
Can you hear me there?
Yeah, now you're great.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, fewer conflicts with working with technology, short trips, transportation, everything should go smoothly. You're like, no, not missing your train, not missing your plane. Signing contracts, it's they tell you do not sign anything while Mercury's in retrograde. Don't buy electronics while Mercury is in retrograde. So that's all good for that.
So awesome. It really does connect. Oh boy, this is terrible. To the theme this week, which is connection. I want to keep this open because this is one of these terms that can mean so many different things and is another one that is a candidate for, if I only take one thing from this course, this is the thing that I take from this course, is the power of connection. I want to kind of fold in our reflection of what's happened this last week into moving forward into where we are around how we can do what we've done moving forward. And I just want to share part of the conversation I had in that when we did our Odyssey plans the last time, this is the first time I didn't write education CEO in mine. I've been doing the Odyssey plan exercise like every time I've done this course, right? And previously, one of my potential futures was to really go all in on building the Wisdom Workshop as an educational platform that could have affiliates around and get teacher training in place, build this up. And then I just realized I didn't want the stress or pressure of fundraising, dialing for dollars, doing all of the CEO businessy stuff. I just don't want to do that. And it was interesting to me that I'm just more comfortable not doing that. And in this conversation I had with awesome person, it dawned on me that maybe I don't need to do that to have that actually be a reality. Maybe I'm not the CEO of this thing. Maybe I'm the chief learning officer and the course designer on salary for the CEO that wants to take this over. I.e., maybe I don't have to be the one that does all the things that makes it work for me. This is a little tiny shift in thinking. When we think about the good life and we think about what the good life is, it's usually a pretty it's like my life versus how I might help another person live their life. So the big punchline, one of them of this course, is that it's almost less about, potentially, it's just an idea. It's less about me living a good life on my own and more about me being in connection with other people to help them live a good life, or at least that our connections with other people make a big difference. So there is that saying that came up, that if you want to go fast, go alone. I think it's an African saying. If you want to go far, has anybody heard this? Go together. In the sense that we are ideally, hopefully, seeing somewhat of a power of community in this group, and a small little weird, kind of artificial, not artificial. This isn't normally the way people make community, right? It's like we all are risky or brave enough to enroll in this course. Thank you, by the way. In whatever it is that you're doing is probably going to look a little different potentially. And so when I'm talking about community and teamwork, we're really looking at connection. The other thing that's really interesting that I'm realizing from the Odyssey plans is that not very much of that connects to how much we need other people to do what we might need to do. Or how much, in a previous, someone said, None of my Odyssey plans took into account what my partner wants to do. Like, man, it's maybe important to not start a surf camp in Costa Rica before consulting with the people that you cohabitate with. Point being, I want to explore connection today, and particularly the kinds of connections that give us strength moving forward. So, before we write on that, I am curious if anyone else has any reflections from last week that may have kind of opened up this idea or connected to this idea of connections that we maybe have with other people, other communities. Does that question make sense? What kinds of connection, or are there connections that we have?
I'll speak to this. I felt like last week I can't think of a better word for it other than relapse. I feel like I had a relapse of like old habits, old like thought processes, like just disconnecting from things and just disengaging and just being alone a lot and just I don't know. I was in a funk last week. Um, and then in thinking of all you just said, Sean, I was like writing down like this week I feel just like amazing and empowered and excited and energy and all this polar opposite of last week, and I'm like, well, what's contributing to that aside from just my mindset? But like Monday I went and had girls night with two of my really good girlfriends. Yesterday evening I had like we had a Zoom call with my first neighborhood association for where I'm moving in Beaverdale, and they're building this new park, and it's like right near our house, and they needed help on the committee, and I got to meet some new neighbors, and it was just kind of like, I mean, like literal community, like my physical neighborhood community. And I also connected with my team, Food Corridor team. So it's interesting how I'm noticing that the differences from how I was, in this relapse of energy and emotion and physicality I was having last week kind of shifted this week. And a lot of it had to do with just like the energy I was getting from connecting in new ways. Like I had more energy. Like I worked out this morning. Like I hadn't done that in a while. And I just, the momentum picked up, and, I decided to go to this poker tournament, which is playing and something I really love to do. So there definitely was a need for me to shift because I was kind of in a dark place last week, and I used reaching out to community to, I feel like, a little bit, maybe even unintentionally, um, to kind of get the momentum going and kind of turn things around and start reconnecting with in my life in general. So
It's really interesting because last week in class, well, I should say this weekend, I said I'm no longer using the word community in yoga. I'm no longer using the word as a sales pitch. I'm no longer using the word as what we do for why we use community for wrangling people in that are disconnected. And I'm pretty adamant about it. And so it's interesting that we have connection here. Like in anything that I offer, connection is first, and it usually takes 5 weeks for the connection to take place. And so it's just very interesting to see, like, not playing devil's advocate, not playing like pushing against things, but it's amazing how disconnected we are as community. When I speak on the world of yoga, it's one of my biggest challenges. It's like the bane of my existence. It's everything I've tried to do in like ripping my heart open for it, but yet, you can take the horse to water, you can't force it to drink. And I think that a lot of this stuff is really, what is community, what is connection, and how meaningful is it to you versus what you're doing to maybe take advantage of it. And I think there are pros and cons to that situation.
I'm gonna follow that. It reminded me, I gave up Facebook about 2 years ago. And back then I was still very much in the dance instructor role. I had a big role in the community, and it was just feeding my ego amazingly.
Mm,
It was really energizing, having all these people coming to me and telling me how awesome I am. And then, yes, at some point, I just felt like the whole period of me being in the dance community was coming to an end. It just felt like I had to take a step back. And it came with stepping out of Facebook too. But that also meant like leaving some of the strong connections that maybe I don't have on my day-to-day here because they don't live here. And so I do feel like I'm missing certain people in my life that we had a strong connection back then, and I'm not aware that they're still there. And so this week I started thinking, like, with the prompt from last week of like, think of people you haven't talked to in a long time, like, and you like to talk to. And I started, and didn't delete my account. I go in whenever I need to find out, I don't know, certain information or something like that. But it's like once or twice a year now. And so I now started making a list of people that I know I kind of want to keep around or try to give them a call more often. And yeah.
Thanks, Benny.
I'll jump in real quickly and just say that I've really wanted connection with some people who I only connect with on one thing, like tennis. I want love to be, on the court with these people, and yet there's zero connection outside of this one shared,
awesome,
activity. So I feel like I pick up very quickly on who I connect with and who I don't. It seems to be fewer and fewer people. My community is getting smaller, even though I'm putting myself out, but I don't connect. And I don't invest anymore if I don't. Like in this tennis example, I just am there for that. I'm not going to be hanging out with these folks or discussing big topics. Not that they're not capable of that. That's just not how we connect. So I am paying attention to that a lot more and how I actually connect with people. So anyway, it's interesting. It's sometimes feels like it's just difficult to find a connection spot. And when that happens, I don't even feel sad about it. I'm just like, I just don't connect with that person. Great person. Just don't connect. On next.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Anyway, it's kind of interesting. I've been paying attention to that though.
It really, really is. Particularly as we spend more time working, right? This came up in a clubhouse room on friendship for men, particularly who are working a lot. It's very difficult to make friends as older men who are working a lot. This came up a lot of men saying that if we don't work together, we don't hang out. Or someone said, you have three things: social life, a family, and a work life. Pick two. Which do you want? Because you can't have all three. And I'm like, that's some bullshit. And then I started thinking about my last 10 years, and I'm like, oh my God. My only social life is from playing gigs, which is work, and through work, and through my family connections. So you really hit something really interesting. And I like that way you said there's nothing wrong with playing people that like to play tennis. Like, that's great. And I'd like a badminton partner this summer probably. So if anyone wants to play badminton in my backyard, that sounds really fun. I'll get the net. So or we had a joke in the last class about roller skating partners. Anyone want to go roller skating? I like to roller skate with other people. So we were even going to make shirts that said, will you go roller skating with me? Some people are going to be no. Other people are going to be like, yes. So I think, Amanda, you really hit on something really important about doing activities and playing with other people and how difficult it is to find connections with other human beings outside of that, particularly when we work a lot, and particularly when we want to be close to the people we want to be close with. It doesn't really leave that much room.
For in my little example, I just feel like I really wanted to connect with those people more. I was using it as a social outlet. I really wanted there to be more connections than just the fact that we all play tennis, and that's great. But that turns out to be really the only thing we have in common and the only thing we connect on. Which is fine.
Yeah, Amanda, that's interesting that you say that, and especially to your point, Sean, like as I've gotten older in life, I've lost a lot of those connections, and I feel like for a long time I just had, and maybe I took them for granted. And then I don't know if it's laziness, or just busyness or whatever it is, but I play tennis something quite a bit too, or I used to, and several years ago I was like, I'm going to play in a league. And as much as I love the sport of tennis, it was about the game and it was about the tennis, but deep down I was really just looking for people to connect with. So I'm like, I don't know how to meet people anymore. I don't, or I'm just not doing it. And so I was using it in that vein too, but I didn't come out of it with anything other than I played some tennis with people. So I had that same experience. And so I don't know then if I look at that and give up, like, okay, well, maybe that's just not how you make connections anymore, and so then I find myself reverting back to my solo things, or like, well, I go mountain biking with myself, and I do this, and I find myself then just doing my solo things more, but that's not fulfilling community connections. So,
What is shuttlecock?
it's the badminton.
See, I don't even
Right?
know. I'm
Is
so.
that what that is, Ashley?
I had to
Yeah,
Google
it's
it.
like-
I had no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, like, wait a minute.
yeah.
It's you can't call it a ball.
It's such a funny word. I had to put it in there.
It's a shuttlecock.
It's a shuttlecock. Mindy, I resonate with what you're saying a lot, especially right now. I'm moving to like I just turned 40 and I'm moving to a new city. And I'm kind of like at that age where I'm like, having strong friendships and connections. Like, I can count on my hand, like my best girlfriends, and they all live here or in Texas. And I have been thinking about this a lot, like, how am I going to meet people? How am I going to have a friend to like walk with, or like whatever it is? And I feel like, this is late in my life to be putting myself out there. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the bar. Like, I'm not going to go to the bars. I'm not like, what am I going to do? And I think, Amanda, to your point, it's like, I probably can find friends that are like, activity partners, but are those like really strong friendship connections? Like, what, like, how do those build? And I think they build obviously over time. And I think they build through experiences together, new experiences together. I think you grow friendships through going through things together, going through new things together. And that's how if you've ever like had actually like a traumatic thing happen or a scary thing happen, and the people that are in the room with you that you experience that with, you feel really strong connection with, because we all went through that together. It takes those types of experiences, maybe not scary ones, but like authentic and new experiences to build that long-term kind of rapport with each other. And so I'm pretty nervous about moving. That's why I'm like, I'm going to join the neighborhood association and get on a committee, and like, I don't know.
I did what you're doing, Ashley. I was 42 and no husband, no partner. And to a place I knew no one other than a couple of work people. I threw myself into activities, and I met people who will be longtime friends. I didn't connect with everyone, but I connected with a couple.
And that's all you need, right? You need
Just like one person. I needed one. I met the one person who introduced me to other places and other people, and that community. I don't live there any longer, but that community is still, it rivals my like hometown community, which is my, old good friends and my family and my husband now. And anyway, it wasn't as scary as I felt like it was going to be in my 40s to relocate and try to make a new life.
Thank you.
So I think you're doing the right thing, and then you'll weed out what, activities either lead you to more connections or not.
Those people are weird.
Anyway, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've always, through all these moves or whatever, I've decided, like I still come back to dogs. Dogs are my people.
And I don't think our connection with ourselves is really significant here. I just listened to Sarah Silverman's on Tim Ferriss. I posted it in the alumni group that it's about how she learned how to be her own best friend. That's exactly it. That's what he titled the podcast. And it's not exactly what that's about, but she's like, I learned how to have inside jokes with myself. And so I would like make this joke and laugh my ass off. People would be like, "What's wrong with you?" She's like, then in her, she's so awesome. She's like, in my long-term relationships, or I'd get into relationships with people, and I talk to myself all the time. She's like, it's weird to talk to yourself at first. It feels like you're kind of crazy, but like you start getting used to it. And then my partners would be like, they'd think I'm talking to them, and I'm like, no, I'm not talking to you. Just because I'm talking in another room by myself doesn't mean that I'm talking to you. I'm talking to myself. So there's something really there, and with dogs too, or birds. Is that weird? Like I feel like I like my birds, not my birds, but like the birds.
Non-human. Yep.
Non-human. Yes. Thank you. I was starting to feel really out on a limb.
Oh,
I
I saw a hawk last week, or a bald eagle last week.
Oh.
It's eagle season right now, apparently. So
Very active. Yeah.
be on the lookout.
Don't take your connections for granted. One, invest. Someone said the word invest is another really interesting verb in this context. Like a bank account, sometimes or an investment, you put something in, you don't get anything out. Par for the course. Sucks, but that seems like that happens sometimes. I threw myself into activities I wrote down. It's really interesting, and how we meet other people. Okay, anyway, other things that people are noticing or that we like here.
I'm noticing that when I first moved here, I didn't like have anything here. I moved here by myself. So, I mean, I have roommates and they're super cool, but essentially I moved here not knowing anybody. Not even really them. I just found them on a website. But I needed to throw myself out there and like really, really put myself out there at first in order to cultivate some sort of connection. And I found like a really beautiful community of people here that are so inclusive, and I've never experienced anything like that. Like people just like inviting me to everything and like asking me to hang out all the time. Back at home, like I was always the one like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I've realized that it's almost like overwhelming now that I'm here, and like I'll be at work and a couple of people will hit me up throughout the day and be like, hey, like, what are you doing tonight? And like, I just want to like lock myself in my room, and I don't know why, and I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's winter. I keep blaming everything on winter lately. Like, what's wrong with me? I didn't call you the other day, Sean. It's because it's freaking winter. But I don't know what's going on, because like I just have been really like reclusive lately, and like I want to like do these things and like go roller skating with my friends because they invited me, or go to the show with my friend because they invited me. But I'm just like, wow, that sounds like a really cool step below hanging out in my bed. Like I don't know.
It's also what Sarah Silverman said, that
And
she gets all kinds of crap for not going to parties that are like right up the street from her.
Yeah, like what's going on? My friend invites me to the Aggie all the time, and I still have never been there, ever. But also thankfully, and I was thinking about this for a couple days, and I think about things all the time and then just don't act on them often, very often. But I was thinking for maybe like 3 or 4 days, like, oh, like I want to hit up Lyric. I have her on Instagram. It'd be really cool. And I just didn't. Like, I don't know why, but I just didn't. But then Lyric hit me up and I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. I just don't know why I couldn't do it.
Yes. I can't get over the fact that we live in a networked age are we presumably, according to the marketing materials, Matthew, more connected to each other than ever before? And yet somehow, doesn't seem like that's what's actually going on. Also seems like younger generation is really where this is like happening the most. But I don't know. So this is far out that Facebook came up. I don't know about you, but I get my connection on TikTok nowadays. And I'm partially not even joking. There's a few people on there that I'm like, I get this person. I don't know if that's sad or not. It sounds sad when I say it, but maybe it's not so sad. I don't know. I am, there's two, Matthew, and you put this idea of when we're being received or being used for our gifts, and the sense of connection that I feel like we want and need, in a sense of belonging, not where you're, and this is, Amanda, I think that we might like a distinction that you made in your share. I don't want to be received as a good tennis player. I want to be received as me. Like, I want you to see me. And I'm a little weird. And it takes some time for me to come out. Right? I don't know. I think that's part of this is a giant part of writing the good life. And it's one of the ones that I feel like is, I don't know, I'm learning a lot about. So I'm curious about what. Well, should we write? Any other things here?
I just wanted to comment on Benny's comment about it being winter. I mean,
Yeah.
well, I mean,
It's
like,
real.
yeah, it's real. Yeah, don't deny. I mean, there's seasons for a reason. The reason for the season, but like the winter is supposed to be the time that you go internal and you reflect and you rest. And then spring comes and you can plant seeds and like it sounds cliche, but I mean that's very real. So don't the fact that you're having to go against your natural tendency, like you want to be resting but all these things are going on, like you're fine. Like that's just the way that's okay. I also, Benny, have had to like lean in a little bit more. Like I get invited to things and I also am like, I'm fine just hanging out by myself at home with my dog. Like I'm good. But I do find when I'm like, all right, and I'm the queen of canceling too. Yeah, I'll make it. And then I'm like, actually, I'm going to cancel because I'm just going to stay home. And so
That's why I'm bad at making plans in the future because I can't tell how I feel that day.
Exactly. I don't know how I'm going to feel that day. So I hate making, that's the same thing. I was like, I prefer last minute plans. And then when I make the plans, I'm like anxious all day. Like, I don't know if I'm going to feel like going out and what excuse can I use and But it's like, I have found that if I lean in, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go, even though I don't feel 100% like going. And then I always kind of delight and find like, I'm glad I went. That was a great conversation, or I saw this person, or what, it ends up not being the end of the world. But I really have a struggle with like leaning into that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll go.
Yeah. I literally had someone ask me the other day, like someone from work. She was like, hey, do you prefer making plans in the future, or do you prefer like kind of like day of type of thing? And I was like, honestly, Cairo, like the day of would be awesome because I'm really bad at committing myself to things energetically. When I'm like feeling low, I'm like,
so good.
Oh my God. And it's interesting because I've never felt like this before. Like back home, I feel like I was always like, all right, let's do stuff like all the time. And I don't know like where this shift has occurred, but I just gotta listen to myself. It is. It just is.
Yeah, that's a yeah, I experienced that too, Benny, and absolutely like same. The thing I always say to myself is I definitely am a person that finds I get my energy from myself, not from other people. Definitely internal and representative, but I find it sometimes it can be a fault to where I do my whole week or my whole day or my whole month, I feel like by myself, and it's fulfilling on certain levels. But then like, I have friends who will be like, why didn't you invite me to go with you when I'm talking about something I did? And I'm like, it literally didn't cross my mind. And then I kind of feel bad. And I'm like, oh my God, am I a horrible person? But my natural tendency is to just go do things myself, and I get my energy that way, so it works. But then I do feel like I'm missing out, and so it's just something I have to be conscious of. Like, where am I getting my energy, and can I be okay with getting it from other places? And maybe I don't just do everything on my own. So it's a hard balance.
I think it's one of those things too, Mindy, that's always like shifting, right? I look at my parents who've lived here forever, went to college, that they have this amazing community. But I look at the community that they had through kids, right? It's like they had the sports community, this like audience, and they were friends with the parents of our friends. And now they're not really, they're not connected with those people anymore because all their kids are out of the house. But so I do feel like it's kind of in a constant state of flux. Community is how you define that, or connection. But yeah, I'm not going to introduce you to these tennis people because you'll get nothing out of it.
Because I'm getting nothing out of it.
Tennis.
Amanda, maybe you and I should just go play.
We'll just play. Yeah.
We'll just play.
I think there's another interesting challenge here, at least in Fort Collins. The dominant thing that you do with other people is drink. Or maybe that's just with,
I think that's life.
That's kind of the music community that we're in. It's like, well, what do you want to do? Let's grab a beer. Which is great. Kind of.
It's not great.
No.
I agree. But I don't think it's centralized to Fort Collins.
Thank you.
It's easy to think that it's centralized to where you are, because I've done that, but it's like everywhere I've gone, it is the same. And that's something I've paid attention to, paying attention. Like, that is very real. And
yes.
What do we do with that? I don't know. But I don't have any thoughts or answers. I'm very aware of it.
It's ubiquitous for sure. And also, alcohol tends to be kind of the social lubricant, right? Like, then people have to have it in order to like meet people or go out or put themselves out there. And it just becomes like not a virtuous cycle, a detrimental cycle or whatever. It's not good. Even like the mommy culture, I feel bad for moms. It's like the mom culture is like, if you can't get get to 5 o'clock so you can have your mommy wine, then are you even a mom? It's like the culture for moms is so sad. It's like, if you're not drinking to get through your day, then you're not a mom. It's like, why are we doing that to mothers? It's terrible.
I've definitely felt with friends and just maybe coworkers like out of place because I don't drink.
Yes.
Many times on our Thirsty Thursday, like
Thirsty Thursday.
every week at the office. Yeah. It would just be so awkward. And some people will still be happy to make conversations, but I've definitely had like a couple of close friends who've given me a hard time because I don't drink. And I don't know, and what you guys were all saying, to me, it very much feels like we just have different needs for different types of connection, and we need to figure out what is it that we need at certain moments, and maybe prioritize. What do I value more, like going out and making this connection, or staying in and staying warm and cozy and having ice cream. But it's definitely, I don't know, I feel it requires to tune in to your body and your mind, see what is it that you need, and sometimes that's hard.
When I first stopped drinking, the first few months or whatever, like I didn't go out at all because I realized all of my social stuff was surrounded around drinking. It was like I couldn't go anywhere. I was like, oh, all I do is drink. So I need to it took me a good 3 months of rewiring things to figure out, oh, I can do all these things without drinking and get comfortable doing that. And just like, you have to get that repetition of learning to do the thing without the thing. But I still, even like Monday night, my friend was like, "Hey, you want to come over for wine and watch The Bachelor?" And I was like, "Sure, And I came over, but I brought my own kombucha and I didn't drink wine, and I felt great the next morning. And she was pretty toasty, and I'm just kind of like, you know, I've gotten to a point where with it that I can wear it as a badge of honor and like be proud of myself that I don't drink, that like I know that doesn't serve me, and I know it doesn't serve a lot of people, but they don't know that yet, or maybe they're somewhere else on their journey. So it's not about judgment, but it's just about knowing that I'm glad that I've dealt with that already, and I'm fine where I am now, and I don't like Diana, you were saying, or Deanna, you were saying like your friends still like whatever. That's their stuff. Like if they're like insecure that you're not drinking, that says a lot more about them than it does about you. And I know you know that, but it's like, you know, people that are uncomfortable with people that don't drink. I don't know.
That's their own insecurity. Yeah, that's tough. Ashley, I'm curious around, this doesn't have to turn into a conversation, but just, you talk about the 3 months, you know, and it kind of took those 3 months. Did you find after, you know, once you kind of settled in, were you still doing all the same activities? You just learned how to do them in with, you know, sans alcohol. Like that's just, it's curious to me because I've thought that a lot when I've even like been like, I'll go a week, and then I find myself doing the same thing. I'm like, everything I do is centered around it, whether it's with my friends, my work, you know, myself. You know, oh, I'm gonna have a nice night at home, and I'm just gonna have a glass of wine. Oh, maybe I had a bottle. Oops. Like, you know, so yeah, I'm curious.
If you think about it, I mean, you've trained your brain in those instances to want the thing.
Yes.
So you know, how many years have you been doing that? You've trained your brain to, you know, want the thing in all of those situations.
Yes.
And so it took me, like you said, a good 3 months of retraining my brain and leaning into the uncomfort, because it's uncomfortable. Your whole body and your whole mind's telling you, I want a drink. I should have a drink right now. Why can't I have a drink? I'm home and relaxing, or I need a margarita. I'm at a Mexican restaurant. Like your whole brain is telling you, you should have, you know, why not? Why not? But unless you say no and have those experiences without it, you're never going to be able to like retrain your brain to be able to be not have that urge anymore.
Yeah,
Sean, are you laughing?
No, I'm
At the
Matthew.
chat.
Sorry. Yeah, that's terrible. I've done a
Matthew
few
just
things.
said, like,
I've done a
the
few
best
things as a
thing, though.
facilitator today that I'm not really proud of. That was one of them.
Matthew's message was really funny.
That's
and
what I was
accurate,
laughing
though. And
at,
I
yeah.
was thinking, like, it's so weird being in a culture where, like, alcohol is so pushed. I am very grateful that as a 22-year-old, I never loved it that much. I never had that much of a phase. Like, it tastes like shit, straight up, like all of it. It just tastes so bad. So I'm super grateful for that. But a lot of like my friends, I'll just see them like on Snapchat, and like I'm like, dude, it's Wednesday night. Like, are you okay? Or like it's Thursday night. You did this last night. Are you okay? Like this isn't like a fun thing anymore. This is like you're going out and you can't not, and that's a problem because that's a problem. You're too young to be experiencing no. But having water or like something in your hand when you're out is definitely helpful because it's like a little placeholder, I feel like. So like I feel like standing there with nothing to do with my hands sometimes as a fidgety person, I'm like, what do I do? But water. I like to hold water.
And I also, I mean, I know for me, since I have beer to celebrate and relax, I realized that I needed to pre-plan and get really nice kombucha and fizzy drinks stocked up in the fridge, so I could, when it came time to like, oh, this is time to cheer, I need a drink. And I caught myself saying that, I would go to the fridge and be like, my favorite fizzy kombucha or a beer. Fizzy kombucha, actually, yum. Right? So I do think it takes some pre-planning, like you said, Ashley, as well. Like you really need to take care of that and the power of conditions and all of that. And yeah, thank you, Matthew. And I'm sorry that I laughed because we're good.
We're fine.
I know.
I just felt like I missed it.
Thank goodness for that.
Like, I know they're probably not laughing at me. Probably.
Yeah, and then there is, there's other, it's just really interesting that we as human beings, do we agree that we need something to connect over? Like we need something. Tennis,
It's
alcohol.
like it's like an introduction or
Yes.
something, you know?
Yes. I like that. Then I wonder, what other kinds of things we can connect over.
Right.
This is interesting. I feel like we're connecting over a mutual desire to like do better or live better. Would we all that's why we did it the very first thing. The first session was trying to create a little bit of community by identifying what we all thought the good life was. And then I asked everybody, what did anyone notice any commonalities between what people said? And the commonalities that came up, there's some transitions towards something perhaps. So there's a lot of people that were saying I'm in transition to something. The idea that we are ready to lean in and hit the ground running, week 1. That we're, wanting connection, wanting to make the most out of our time. And this is the interesting one, the last one, which I didn't plan this. Cultivate meaning.
Sean, can I make one more comment?
Please.
I think it's kind of well, I know it's relevant. So, we're talking about alcohol specifically, but in a lot of the AA literature, they say that the addiction is caused by a lack of connection. Like, so it's any addiction, like porn, being on your phone, addicted to running. It could be anything, but the core of that is a lack of connection. And so I think that it all there's something really deep there.
Yes. Which connects to Matt, your point about like feeling belonging, and Matt, like the existential crisis of like, I want to matter. Like I want to be seen. Heard 2 people this last week say that they felt invisible. It's a very difficult place to be. So, and that's a very real place to be when everyone is not seeing each other. It's like you're probably not off. People are really absorbed in themselves. Thanks, Instagram. Here's the check of my attention. Here you go.
Sean, I said the death of yoga was the influencer.
I just tried to get an influencing contract today, so maybe that's the death of wisdom too.
Well, what I mean is like when the individual is more important than the community, then we have a problem. When it's a top-down tier system and the influencer is the one that's talking and speaking and the only one that gets to talk, and by the way, there's 10 people in the room and it's the only one talking. This is a lot of the workshops and things that I've been to in yoga where like you could sit anywhere. Oh, don't sit there. That's the guru seat. Or, you could do whatever you'd like, but oh no, that's not for you. You can't speak. You can engage in this. What do you want to do? This community. Oh, you open your mouth. Okay. No, sorry, that's wrong. And so a lot of it is really this lines of learning a subject and how you study it. And then how we've pulled so many things away from like our thoughts, feelings, and emotions that churn and stir and like call us to the breaking point of tolerance. Because what do you hear a lot of, like lower your expectations and increase your level of tolerance? It means that means I'm just yoga mat and you're just going to walk on me. So like, although I'm known for that comment, I think the fact of the matter is like a lot of people know me in town as yoga mat, but they don't know anything, nothing else besides that, not a damn thing. And so it's really challenging for me right now in the ways of like trying to sit through this challenging conversation of all the things that we've all struggled with. I'm sweating, I'm uncomfortable. I've been sitting here rolling my hands and I wanted to turn off. I almost left, but I'm here and I'm sitting with you.
I want to talk about that individuality and the individualism, because I do think that's something that's built in. And I see a lot, right? That's part of the human nature is to be self. What I'm suggesting is I think there's a skillful way to be selfish that understands that I need you, Matthew. Like I literally need you for what you
Sean,
provide.
and I wasn't knocking like the influencer culture.
Sure,
I
sure,
understand
sure.
that, but what I'm getting at is the speciality that they have something that you don't, that they are going to help you that you can't
Yes.
help yourself.
Yes.
That the means to the end is outside of
Yeah.
yourself in an external world. So when we're really getting into like what's the internal thermostat and what's the external thermostat, and how do you create homeostasis? And this is a challenging conversation. It should be uncomfortable. I mean, it is uncomfortable. And guess what? That's what life is. It's messy. You're born on a mess and you come out hopefully with grace. But the fact of the matter is like all of the things that we're embracing right now as what it means to be human is changing very quickly. Time is speeding up. The rapid nature of like us moving with so many people experiencing reality at once, we weren't ready for this. And so organic matter is at its peak of performance. And we're all being called to another zone of experience that I don't know if we're ready for, but we're going to see.
And I also, there's the external, there's interesting psychological research on where our locus of control is. So if my external locus of control is like, I need these things to feel good. Once I have these things, I'm going to feel good. That puts the locus of control outside of myself, and it's a disempowering. People that have identified, and they do psychological surveys to see where you put, versus my internal locus of control. When I am this kind of person, I'm right. Difference of these things out here make me feel good versus I'm this kind of person makes me feel good.
And Sean, I have to say something. Like I have to soften a bit because I feel like I was just like attacking the group there, and like I'm just intense and passionate about this stuff, and like overly like fed up with my own shit. That's where I'm at. So like when you're really fed up with your own shit, transformation happens. Like we said, the breakdown and the breakthrough. I actually had that in like this card reading that I pulled, and I was just like, okay, there's another synchronicity. So I don't mean to be overbearing for the group, and I just wanted to, you know, settle that energy down.
Yeah, as all the Olympic athletes do. And I will also, I think that's a really nice thing that you said. Thank you for your consideration and compassion. I did want to say Nietzsche identified two enemies of civilization. I don't agree with everything Nietzsche said, but I think this is really interesting. Has anybody heard this? Two enemies of good civilization and culture: alcohol and Christianity. Why? Both of them convince people, and his read on Christianity is wrong in my opinion, but according to him, both of them convince people that things are okay when they're not okay. And what we need is to actually really realize when things aren't okay. And the other thing I really want to emphasize here is when we are more intelligent in our selfishness. So I realize I need these things. And I also know that other people are like me and they need them too. Now I can have a conversation. Benny, so brilliant. Are you the kind of person that likes to plan things in advance or just spontaneous? Cool. Me too. Is it okay if I just call you randomly? Cool. Me too. Awesome. Well, I gotta go actually. Cool. Bye. This is like a skill set, right? It's a skill set of self-awareness, being able to communicate what I need to feel good here, and then putting out the bat call. It's like a beacon. Like I need some people that want to talk about Nietzsche with me. Please call me. Don't reply to this fucking post. Fucking call me. I don't know. Yeah, but it's okay. All right. So, wow. Here's what I want to do.
I want to hear from Lyric.
Hi, Lyric. Thanks, Ashley. I didn't want to put Lyric on the spot.
But... Yeah, I didn't want to either, but thanks, Ashley.
Well, Lyric, can I put you on the spot?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, good. You look cozy.
Yeah, I just bought this sweatshirt a couple days ago.
Is it like your new skin?
Yeah, it's nice. It's big.
I dig it.
It's cozy. The alcohol topic is really cool. I think that's a really cool topic. I think I grew up in a household where alcohol was we were all dependent. Not me, but like I had family members that were really dependent. And ever since I can remember, I haven't made my own friends my own age, and it was like party central, like all we did was go out. Home cooked meals weren't a thing. We went out every single night. And then when I got my license, I was like designated driver every weekend for anybody. I was given this role. So I don't really have a great experience with alcohol. It's a little like touchy, and I don't really drink at all myself. I on occasion for like simple like evenings or something. And that really fucked me over because I can't make friends my own age. And all of my friends I make here all want to go out. And I'm genuinely not old enough to get into places. So that's a tough barrier. That's a really hard spot for me to be in. So that's one thing I could add. And yeah, connection is pretty. Yeah, I go get tea and coffee all the time. I do love tea and coffee. And another thing about connection is I really kind of resonated with that. I think Amanda said it, but you can only connect people so far in certain situations. Like how like her tennis friends, or like they were just like her tennis friends, and like that's how it is in school at some points. Like you go to one class and like you only know them for this like 50 minutes, and then after that there's no other connection. So yeah, that's how that goes.
So good.
That made me think. I transferred schools when I was a junior, and it was very difficult. They made me live in the dorms, and I lived with just like a bunch of freshmen, and I didn't talk to my roommate, and I had no friends. And there was one girl in my class that I hung out with, and at the end of the day, I had nothing in common with her. But I was so uncomfortable being alone and like being by myself that I put myself through hanging out with her for like 2 semesters because I literally didn't know anybody else, and I didn't know how to know anybody else, and it was not cool. She was a nice girl. She like fed me. She was really friendly. She let me get off campus. Like it was good, but ultimately we had nothing in common. I was like, why? I don't care about Kylie Jenner and Post Malone.
Wait a minute, Post Malone's new record is actually pretty darn good. No, just joking.
Maybe I'll have to give it a listen. I wouldn't drop $250 to see him, that's for freaking sure. But she did. And I'm not judging, but we just had nothing in common.
I also think, I mean, this goes back to what, Amanda, I think what you said is like, it's always in flux as like the community that you have in the community. Like, I think as I've gotten older, I can't tell you how many people I've grown out of. Like, we were such good friends for so long. You were my bestie, da da da. And like, nothing in common anymore. Like, we are such different people. I don't wish harm on you. I don't dislike you. I don't like,
have fun at the Post Malone show.
Whatever it is. Like, I'm not judging you. We just don't have anything in common anymore. And like, we grew out of each other. It's okay, like, to grow out of people, but like, I don't know, that I guess yours seemed a little bit more like a relationship of convenience, a little bit, right?
Yeah, it just like Lyric really reminded me of that by saying like sometimes it's literally just in class that you're friends, and I feel like that should have been what it was left at, but I wasn't listening to like everything around me and my surroundings that was just like, hey, like be your own friend. So I was like latching onto this person who I ultimately just didn't have anything in common with.
It made me think of too the Post Malone reference and something else, just the idea of a scene. And if you're not relating to an actual person, but being connected to, like, there's a coffee shop I love in town that I used to go to all the time before the pandemic because I liked the scene there. I liked the Momololo's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the first coffee shop I went to when I moved here.
It had an interesting, at that time, the owner was a ex-PhD mathematics. It was an interesting place.
It's funky.
Funky. I didn't like it at first at all. But the people that came there, there's a Grateful Dead is another interesting one. very interesting scene. Now, I have deadhead friends. They have a language. They have, like, they connect. Yeah, right? Did you hear what the deadhead said when they ran out of drugs?
God, this band sucks.
Yeah. That's the joke. It's terrible, actually. Bob Weir is probably the greatest accompanying guitar player of all time. They're freaking brilliant musicians and songwriters, not to mention business people. They're well ahead of the game. You don't think of the Grateful Dead as savvy business people? They were. Like, way beyond. Anyway, point being, they have a connection with a scene. And I think that's a really... Matt, go ahead. Matthew.
No, please, you're on a good thread, please.
No, that was it. It's just
Okay,
like
so
that's another Pete, not the Grateful Dead, but the Grateful Dead is an example of a coffee shop, of a scene.
Yeah, Sean, this is what I'm calling. This is the fluid realms this is what I'm cultivating here. What's behind the scenes of my work, and what I'm getting at is like fluid boundaries. Like things ebb and flow, and you're right. It's like situational. It's seasonal. It's scenic. It's what it may be, and we're like, the more we try and keep ourselves static in a position of like that's not evolving and changing, like, but he's Matt and he does yoga. It's like, well, I also do fishing and gardening, and I want to learn French, and I want to do all these other things that add to the artistry of my life as my masterpiece. And so this fluid realms is like fluid boundaries, but no limits. How often do you diminish yourself in company and cultures that like you don't feel like you could fully express yourself for being judged or mimicked or whatever it may be? And so I think that we have to really step into this moment of understanding that you're bringing your, the most appropriate self to the present moment. That oftentimes, like we say, like, be kind. Well, sometimes kindness is saying no with a yes conviction, to make space for yourself, to take care of yourselves, to not really, be judged against your own judgments. I mean, we're all making them. Anyone that says no judgment, like I teach full-time yoga. I teach mainly yoga philosophy. The last thing I say is no judgment. Like it's like the farthest teaching from anything I ever teach.
I would say practice non-evaluative awareness.
Yeah, we could call that mindfulness.
Yeah, well, that is what it is. And you're right. Okay. We're gonna time out conversation. Does anyone else want to say anything though? Actually, I feel like there might be something coming up. Here we go. We're gonna go a little shorter. We're gonna experiment with just doing a 5-minute one. I don't know if people have done 5-minute, so you only have so much time. The prompt that I like to use in this regard is like, what do I need to hear right now? What would be good for me to write, or what would be good for me to hear? That's the go-to. Like, if I'm just meandering in my pages and I know I need to leave the house in a little bit, I'll just be like, all right, cut to it. What do I need to say? What do I need to get off my chest? And then something happens. For this, so we're going to kind of use that pressure of time to just see if, as an experiment, since we're almost out, we'll go 6 minutes. What are our sources of connection? And I want us to think, we've had this entire conversations about people. So if you want to talk about people, that's fine. But the reality is, in the world that we live in, people are just one source of connection. And one of the ways that we can connect with other people is by identifying other mutual connections. You love tennis too? So, what connections do you have? And maybe I'm going to change this a little bit. What connections do you cherish? Or connections as a source of strength? I want us to take this in whatever direction this might go in. What are some sources of connection that give us strength? That's probably the best way to put it. Make sense? Okay. Let's go till 1:07. 5 minutes here. Let's time officially, but we're all still writing. So go ahead and take another 30 seconds to leave something for yourself if you want to pick this up again.
Of strangers, like you just like don't know anyone at the table, and you just sit down with these strangers and you're doing an activity like tennis or whatever, but you're kind of forced in the confines of these 9 seats, and every time you sit down it's like a random drawing of these crazy for me. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Fantastic.
pretty interesting.
I talked about a couple of things. I talked a little bit about music and me going to festivals and shows, and then me going to other genres of music and feeling more so out of place because I don't know. I talked about travel and how traveling has connected me to a lot of people. And how my courage with my words have connected me with a lot of people, and me not being afraid to like say things, because like the first week I moved here, I just was talking to somebody and I ended up getting invited to a party, and that's how I know all of the people that I know, because there was like live music, live painters, people selling wine that they made, a crazy tree house, like this really insane, like just because I put myself out there.
That's Sam's house?
No, it's this dude Ben. Do you know Ben's studio by chance? He like
No.
has a hair studio out of his house. He's on Prospect.
Cool.
Yeah, very
Echo?
interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, let's all go. He literally had a sign on the street that was like 10-year anniversary for my hair studio party. Come on Saturday. Like everyone was invited. So I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, do that, please.
Does he play poker?
Yeah.
I feel like he's this is maybe a synchronicity going on here.
Very interesting. But yeah, but it was my words and my courage to use my words that allowed me to make so many new connections. So that's one thing, just I'm not afraid to put myself out there vocally, I guess. And I also talked about my weirdness and how I just look like a weird person most of the time, and how like just the clothes I wear, I look very normal now, but I wear very funky clothes and I just am a strange person. I like to be goofy all the time, and that like connection with me as well.
Very cool response to the prompt. Because that's just so like you took it in a different direction, which is awesome.
Yeah, I did. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. No apologies. That was should have said thank you. Yeah, I did. You should have said you're welcome. Yeah, I did. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
There you go. Strong. Other sources of connection that we noted.
My source of connection, and probably many others, and how there's many things to create change, healing, and nourishment from nature. I think when we can really focus on what our deepest struggles are as humans, it could be not only the disconnection of nature, but the disconnection from each other. And so I always say, if you want to start a revolution, begin with the compost pile in the backyard, pour it along your garden, and start there. And these are simple ways to create dramatic change in your life. From like, first of all, it's an antidepressant. Second of all, there's just so many things involved with that transaction of taking care of something, especially if you don't have children, pets, or anything else. And so this deep synthesis of like what we feel as a human race and the universality of that is we're all truly interconnected. And so I struggle to see, let's say, the desolation of the world. And so my greatest source is knowing the resiliency of nature. Like if we gave it a moment to pause, it would take care of us once again, and it always will. But we are the stewards of our own fate.
Is there any particular landscapes? I would say I would go even further. Are we looking at open fields with hawks flying above, mountain streams, high altitude pine forest? Any particular landscapes of nature or backyard garden?
I like to take more of like a macro view, so like as if you're seeing it from the Hubble telescope or the new Webb telescope, and really seeing it from more of a like cosmology and cosmogony, and then how we work it into the energy that comes down, that the elements that really mold us into what we are as human beings.
Thank you. That was also not an answer I was expecting or whatever. Thank you. Thank you for entertaining
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes. Nice play. Other sources. I just want us to notice that the deeper we go into this list, I think it's increasingly apparent that we don't exist in isolation. Right? And that the other things we're connected with are the activities that we choose to participate in. Thanks, Ashley. The gatherings of people we choose to go to. Thanks, Benny. The environments that we choose to be in and how we choose to interact in those environments. Thank you, Matthew. I'm going to add in mine that came up interestingly. I was to media, TV shows, and other forms of not just music, but Sarah Silverman was like, I'm always alone, but I'm never alone. So I always am watching TV. I love TV. Like, I just love it. And it's not like a guilty pleasure. She's genuinely like, this is amazing. I am in community with these people. Not because like we're both but she feels like a community with them. So I do think a big source of connection for me is art, which made me think of like culture, like why I like museums and why I just like the shows that I really like, the Station 11 we just finished. That made me feel something. Like, holy shit, there's humans out there doing wild work. Not only is the book incredible, but the adaptation's incredible, what they did, the choices that they made, the acting, the craft. I am enlivened from this, which I hadn't written about before. I also wrote ideas and philosophies no one has said yet. Because you knew Cornell West. And I think there is something really significant there about ideas and philosophies that have come before us that we can tap into.
And how often you say, I was just going to say.
So like depressing. And I'm like, are you kidding? It was hilarious. And the people that made it seemed awesome. Like, I've
heard
like
really good things
smart,
about that movie.
fast. Yeah.
I've heard it's like genius, but I have not watched it yet. And I need to.
Like, what are we doing with our time here? Like,
there was an Idiocracy too, probably.
That's true. That totally was. That's totally true. Okay, cool. So I want to hear some other ones from my list. Because anybody said anything same or different?
I had a similar one to yours, but skater in the games in 30 years. So he just made history. And I was just like, I'm like so proud and energized from him being there. And I'm excited to watch his competition tonight. He made it to the finals. And things like that, like, following.
In that Sarah Silverman episode, one of the quotes I wrote down in my commonplace book, say who you are. Really say it in your life and your work. Tell someone who is lost, someone not yet of. So yeah, thank you.
Just quickly, I wrote down a bunch of characteristics, I would say, of people or places or museums. I found it, though, very interesting that as much as I love being with people, like all of you, because we're also different, and I crave the diversity and just the exposure. When I talk about connections with people, I'm connecting with people who are kind of same. Even though I'm craving all this diversity in music, learning more about history, because I don't know any of those authors really, Sean. I mean, you might recognize the names, but I crave like being exposed to all this stuff. But when it comes down to true people, I guess, who I connect with, they are real people. They're genuine, real people. They've showed me themselves. There's some level of intimacy there, and they're kind of same. I don't know if that's good, or I don't think it's anything, but it's just an interesting thing to notice.
I love it. And I also think like it's hard to find that diversity in Fort Collins, honestly. It's some kind of, so there is I think it's, and I also thought you said that really well when you were kind of wondering if you were saying it well, and it seemed like you were saying it really well.
Thank you.
Just side note. Seemed very well communicated to me. But right at the moment when I was like, wow, this is articulate, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm saying it well. So just observation there for what it's worth.
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, it's far out. This is a great group. I'm like, I also wrote, I didn't say this in the group, but I wrote cultivated communities because I've been playing with this year. Holy shit, synchronicity. Lessons learned from Sarah Silverman's therapist through Sarah Silverman. She asks him, or he asked her, have you ever predicted anything in your life? And then he tells her, not nearly as much as what's happened. So more has happened that you could never have predicted, right? And she's like, yeah. And then he says, we're just looking at our life through a pinhole. There's a giant landscape that's going on around us. And this is the quote. You should be on the edge of your seat, excited to see what comes up next. Because we're only seeing a pinhole when there's all these things happening. You should like lean into the fact that you have no idea what's coming and be excited. Like, what's going to happen? Thanks, Sarah Silverman's therapist, who she quit when he was insensitive because her friend died from COVID and he made a comment about, anyway. Dynamic relationships. Other sources of, I just couldn't, thank you, Ashley. That's a really nice thing to say. Thank you.
Fluid boundaries, Sean. See, the relationship's good until something happens that doesn't work on your end. Then this therapist is out. Thanks for all that you've done to get booked.
Yeah. She did say they left on good terms, and it was time for her to find a new therapist. And finding a good therapist is amazing. It's really helpful. Okay. Good. Other sources of connection. Connection that gives us strength. Any other ones? I'm hesitant to say this, but I feel like I'm going to. Last 2 times ago, I came into the workshop and I was like, connections with other people, so valuable, so wonderful. Today we're going to talk about connections with other people. So I'd like to, let's talk about connections with other people. Everybody, let's write. Connections, here we go. 15 minutes later, we get out the free writing. There's 2 young women in the group who both said, people terrify me. I think people are very dangerous. I don't feel connected to people. In fact, I see people as a source of danger and threat more than I see them as a source of strength and opportunity. In fact, every time I've tried to make a meaningful connection with someone, particularly someone in power, I feel incredibly at disadvantage because it seems like they see my profile and the whole discourse changes. And I'm like, oh shit. Perhaps need to rethink how we talk about connections, and particularly about the positions that we're in. I've never had the opportunity of being a woman on social media who's reaching out to other people in search of connection. So I don't know. Why did I bring that up? Does that help anyone? Why did I feel like I should bring that up? Someone please pat my ego on the back and tell me that I know what I'm doing as a facilitator or not? It's a terrible joke.
So I always say the truth is from every shade of grace to grotesque. Can you handle that as truth? Like, can you handle that as truth? Sometimes people just suck. And you got to, if it's someone you care about, you got to give them the pass and work on the forgiveness that oftentimes doesn't come with an apology, or sometimes forgiveness doesn't begin with an apology. But we have to really understand as this collective unconscious of we can do it too. You know, those thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are barbaric, that are rude, that are gruesome, but that are also loving and beautiful. And that's what makes the joy and wonder of the world so lovely. So like arousing the sense of awe and wonder through a deep lens of curiosity versus judgment. And so we're all going to judge. Like it's like the stop sign, for example. The stop sign is a suggestion. I mean, it's a cultural organization of kind of safety and wellness. But the fact of the matter is, what's the worst thing that can happen if you don't stop at the stop sign? Nothing. Because the next time when you're not paying attention, a little child on the bike rides across and you do the same thing, freedom has both its consequences and responsibilities. We need that to be stewards of this planet.
He speaks in paradox and riddle. That's good. And thank you, Ashley, for that no one has said source or God or spirit is interesting. As I do actually, for me, I identify that as a great mystery. So there's mysterious things going on that I don't understand. And that is, I feel like, a source of strength for me. So just know that. No one said faith or hope either, which traditionally would be another one. Okay, here's the same thing. What I'm going to send this week, there is opportunities to connect with ourselves and different parts of ourselves. So connect with our playful pieces of ourselves, to actually like engage in play as a source of strength. And then other opportunities, it's really Diana, the idea of finding people you look up to is one of the prompts. It's a mentor deck. This idea of finding mentor, not in the sense of someone that invests in you, but someone that you would say, like, what would Cornell West do? Or what would this person do? How have they gotten through this? So it says find at least 2 other people you'd like to become like. Create a deck or some kind of a card. So like my mentor deck, I have started with it has Jim Collins, Cornell West, and Seth Godin on it. And I said why I like them. Jim Collins quit academia and did that. He's astonishing what he's done with his life. Super inspirational to me. So that's we're kind of leaning into the way. I also put a link to Thich Nhat Hanh, who died 2 weeks ago, one of my favorite Vietnamese Buddhist monks. He's amazing. He wrote a book called The Art of Communicating. It's free on YouTube. It's a great audiobook. My God, it's so good. It's wonderful, wonderfully meditative. So that there's a link in the material for that if you want to get better at communicating. Cool.
Where did you say that link was? Is it in the email?
It will be, yeah. It's the last.
Cool.
It's day 35, which is learn the art of communicating. Oh, you know what else is wild? You know what what's the date today?
It's the 9th.
The 9th.
2/9. Guess what day of the Wisdom Workshop this is? 29. What? So on 2/5, it was the 25th day. So
last week, February 2nd, it was the 22nd day.
Yes. And so today is day 29. Tomorrow is day 30. Okay. Awesome group. I wish you proactive outreach in your connections and communications. Yes. I don't know who Boitano is. But yeah, what would Boitano
He's a famous figure skater. So he's actually, he's doing a lot of the Olympic stuff right now. But there's a funny South Park episode where they make fun of Brian Boitano, and they're like, "What would Brian Boitano do?" Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matthew, for having seen the South Park. It's hilarious.
I'm gonna go watch it.
Thank you.
I feel like I should have seen that. I can't believe.
And I just want to appreciate everybody's support in this group. I really do. Those moves, Ashley, you made a couple of really good ones today of support. I love that. Valuable, really good. So thank you all. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Go team.